GM sets up a time travel-centered campaign, doesn't understand causality. So this is a rather recent story, about 6 months ago, and one where I was a player for once. The game was D20 Modern, a modern kind of urban fantasy take on Dungeons & Dragons 3E. It was being run on Start Playing by a semi-friend who had asked me to participate as a bit of a plant. I didn't know anything ahead of time, but he wanted to make sure that there was at least one player in his group that wouldn't be, well, that guy. I really enjoyed playing Modern back in the day, so I accepted. The premise of the game had a lot of promise. Basically, it was the future, and everything was wrecked. The environment was so tormented that only 20% of the globe was inhabitable year-round. Oceans were so acidic that they were completely lifeless. Societal collapse and instability rampant, the whole 9 yards. Humanity basically has about 20 years before we're wiped out, and there was no hope for fixing things. And there weren't enough resources left for any meaningful effort to escape the planet of having any real chance of success. Me and 4 others were playing people recruited to be sent back in time, 12 Monkeys style, which is a fantastic movie, by the way, in order to avert the apocalyptic problems that led to the dead future. We make our guys level up to 3, and have a brief introductory conflict as we fight a group of Mad Max-style raiders that are attacking the facility we're in. We beat them and then get sent back to the year 2003 as the facility explodes dramatically. We have a list of objectives, things to do that will, at the very least, make the future better. The first one is to acquire the monetary resources to achieve the rest of our goals. We were left how to figure that out ourselves, and our dedicated, or the wisdom-focused hero, had an idea. The dedicated hero asked, "Do we have access to historical records from before the collapse of civilization, like newspapers and things?" "Yeah, that's something you guys would have been able to see. That would just be a simple, non-academic database," the GM replied. The dedicated hero had a brilliant idea and said, "So, in 2015 or so, there were these divers that found a wreck in the Gulf of Mexico from colonial days that was full of gold. If we get a boat, go out there and collect it, that would be plenty of money to work with." They listed the longitude and latitude in the article it was reported in. We were stoked for this idea. It was a cool concept that made use of the time travel premise, but then the GM killed it with this comment. "That's an interesting thought, but it won't be there." What? "It won't be there because it hasn't been found yet," the GM explained. "But the boat sank in the 1700s and has been sitting there for centuries. We're just finding it earlier," the dedicated hero replied, confused. "Yeah, but it hasn't been found yet, so it won't be there." Look, I'll spare you the 30 minutes spent trying to explain how time and causality works to him, but I will say it involved graphs. In the end, we accepted that he wouldn't allow us to do this, mostly because he had no planning around it, but it did sour things a bit. Turns out, his plan for us was to rob a bank. He explained that since we're from the future, nothing of us is in any sort of forensic system or database, which would make us harder to catch. I was also confused. I advised the other players to go along with it, though, hoping he had something in his back pocket to make it more interesting. Halfway through our half-baked heist, we got attacked by a group of other people with weapons similar to ours. Before we could independently realize, our GM blurted out, "They're from the future too," and looked really excited for that reveal. We shot them a bunch and got away with an armored car full of money, as well as one guy we captured. We were able to find out from that guy that he was indeed from the future as well, but was a part of a different group that wanted to shape the future to their own ends. When I was told this, I got excited. So, this is the game dealing with antagonistic time travelers that want to make the future worse or align to specific ends. I suddenly got why he wanted the heist to happen, so he could introduce us to this premise. Our prisoner even told us that there were other groups from the future, like a cabal of scientists that want to introduce scientific advancements early, regardless of their impact, and a dangerous group of doomsday cultists that want to end the world even earlier. I was pretty hyped when we found this out. I immediately pictured mad cultists trying to trigger nuclear meltdowns and amoral scientists building future tech machines and mechs for us to fight, all while dodging modern-day authorities and investigations. Unfortunately, none of that happened. What could have been a really interesting setup for different investigations and efforts turned into a revolving door of the exact same fight. And I'm not exaggerating, it was the same fight for the next 3 battles. The first time was us raiding a junkyard full of doomsday cultists that happened to carry the same weapons and act the same way as the guys from the bank. The second fight was a forest compound that had the exact same layout as the junkyard. The third one was a warehouse that, you guessed it, was the exact same, down to the beats of the fight. The first time we had a fight, in the third round a group of guys jumped out of a door and joined the fight. The second time, it happened again on the same turn. The third time around, I got to the door ahead of time and right in action, hoping that I was wrong. Sure enough, the door flung open and baddies spilled out. I lobbed a grenade and caught them all in it. That time, the fight went a lot faster. Here's an abridged list of things that happened, in no particular order. We floated the idea of telling someone in the current time about what we were doing to help facilitate moving around and doing things. Our GM told us that one of our goals was to not share what we were doing with locals. His justification was he didn't want a bunch of NPCs to roleplay. Our charismatic hero asked if he could infiltrate one of the other groups from the future to gather intel, or maybe turn some of them away from their cause. The GM told us that was simply impossible. No explanation, no justification, just impossible. I, the smart hero, asked if I could use my tech skills to make some future tech stuff for us to use. The GM said that he'd think about it. After the session, he messaged me privately and asked me not to bring it up again. The whole thing only lasted 3 sessions. We kept everyone for 1 and 2, but lost 2 guys by the third. After that, the Discord was reduced to just me and the GM. At that point, he straight up just asked me what he was doing wrong, and I told him that there was nothing engaging about how he was running his game. There were no NPCs to roleplay with, no skill checks to be made. It was just a series of unconnected combat encounters with nondescript men with guns. He said that was the kind of game that he wanted to play, and so that's what he ran. He offered to drum up some more players, and I recommended just starting over with a new batch and coming at it fresh. He agreed, and when a few weeks later he asked me to play under him again, I declined. And I have no idea what happened after that. I met up with him at a birthday party about a month ago, 5 months after the game concluded. I found out that apparently this wasn't even his game. It was his girlfriend's, and she had been running this game for over 2 years. He had borrowed one of her earlier notebooks and ran from that. And notebooks are not adventure modules, though. So when there were gaps, he just didn't fill them, or filled them with a boring gunfight. It was an outstanding premise, one I still think about on occasion, but was completely wasted on a game master that didn't understand it or have any interest in engaging with it. I wish I'd been playing in his girlfriend's game, though. You know, I also wish I could be playing in his girlfriend's campaign, because that sounds amazing. Seriously, if the girlfriend hears this, I want to hear way more about your game. Time travel is exceptionally hard to pull off, obviously. If anyone has run a good one or played in one, I'd love to hear more about it as well. Before we take our leave, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, All Things D&D. Stay tuned for more amazing Dungeons & Dragons content.